Little quick note here, just for the hell of it. Northrop Frye said he wouldn't trust a man who didn't repeat himself. Okay? Now, if a person does repeat himself, that doesn't make him necessarily trustworthy. See, I bit my lip while eating dinner tonight and it's swollen. Well, I'm tempted to say the only other time I got a swollen lip, and it was really swollen, my upper lip, boom, it was completely swollen out. I got punched in the mouth. Yeah. I say I've never been in a fight. Well, I was in a little fight. I got to confess, with a cousin of mine. I don't consider that a fight, like a fist fight out in public, right? That's not what it is. Like, I've told this story many times. I was going to have this operation on polyps in my nose. I remembered the word. Polyps. I had these polyps in my nose. I was going to have an operation to have them taken out at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. It's quite a place, right? And right before the operation, there was like a meeting, like 4 doctors and me, all at the same time in this little room. I think, my God, I would have talked to 4 doctors before. I said, okay. So they're talking to me, and one says, "Did you ever smoke?" And of course I said, "Well, you ever see The Nutty Professor?" And let me just talk about The Nutty Professor for a minute. The Nutty Professor is Jerry Lewis. At the beginning of that movie, there's this gigantic explosion. And the dean of the college, whatever it is, he's having a meeting, and everybody's thrown out of their chair, and the shuttering and the windows going up and down. And everything's going this way and that way, and the room's like trembling. And so the dean says, "Get that professor in here. And I want to talk to him," right? And the Nutty Professor is Jerry Lewis, the comedian. And what he's done is he did some kind of experiment. He's a chemistry professor, and there was a gigantic explosion as a result. Now I forget what I was going to talk about. I really have. I don't remember now. Because I'm laughing. This is my explanation for this. I know I'm all over, but why not? Why not be all over the place? My explanation for why I forget is, it's as if I'm talking to a friend, and it's not a friend that I'm talking to. Well, I say these recordings are all for a person I'm calling Bashuasi, but I forget that myself. And at times, it's like, oh, I'm just talking like maybe to a friend. But then I say to the back of my head says, AJ, there's no friend out there for you at all. Look at the life you've had. And that seizes me up. Says, there's no friend. Well, I'm laughing and joking like we're enjoying this with somebody else. There's nobody there for me. So I seize up into an emotional blackout because I say, wow, the kind of things I've endured. There's a friend. What kind of a friend is this? If anything, it's a friend like in that novel, Interview with a Vampire. This young woman is talking to this vampire through the whole novel. And the vampire's explaining all this stuff. And she says, yes. So you know what's going to happen at the end of that novel. The woman's going to become prey of that vampire who's her best buddy. But what else did she expect? Okay, so I don't remember what I was going to talk about. Let me put this on pause. It may come back. I got to say, I feel I'm approaching the feeling of being very upset now in the midst of that laughter. Let me hold on a second. I can't remember what I was talking about in this note. And to remember it, I'd have to stop this note and watch it. And I don't want to do that. I like a continuous type recording. I'm not going to go into why I do. But so let me end with this. When I was a recent graduate of the University of Maryland, I was 22 years old, and I was working for my uncle, who was later murdered, Uncle Fred. He was what you call a public defender in the D.C. Superior Court. And every single person he represented was African American. Every single one. And I was his assistant doing investigations for him. What were the investigations? I'd go out and interview the people who were going to be defended by him and find out the whole story and write it out in a report on a typewriter for him and any other interested lawyer. And he even bought me a Polaroid camera, which was great. It cost him $80. That's a lot of money at that time. We're talking summer of 1976. It's this beautiful Polaroid camera where, you take a picture, then you wait for 1 minute, and then you pull the picture out of there, and you have a picture right there developed by the camera. It was great. He bought me that to help me do these investigations. And since I'm going on with this, I realized how the hell I lost my point by doing this kind of thing. He made me a licensed bonded private detective. He got me a license. So we went to this place, and I had an ID that said I was a licensed bonded private detective. That's what he did to help me get paid for the work that I did for him. Because I had to submit, wow, am I getting into this? I had to submit these vouchers. Oh, God, these complex government sheets, questionnaires to try to get paid for the work I did. Okay? Let me not go on, but I'm now forgetting what the hell I was talking about. I was saying I'd worked for my uncle. Why was I talking about that? I was able to conclude. Oh, yeah. One of the things I did in one of these investigations was there was a guy accused, believe this or not, of stealing. I'm laughing. I shouldn't be. This is a very serious thing in this guy's life. Stealing his girlfriend's stereo and selling it to this sting operation. I think this is the first sting operation in the United States where the police set up this fake operation that they said was being run by the mafia in D.C. so that people who had stolen things could bring their stolen goods to this mafia-run illegal place for stolen goods and sell them to the mafia. And the mafia was who? Police pretending to be mafia. So I got to say, when I heard this, it was hard to not laugh because I'm still laughing because I say, I grew up in Bethesda. It was the only Italian there. And I find out later in life I'm not even Italian. I'm an Italian Jew. But I thought for most of my life I was an Italian, so there were no Italians in D.C. at all. And as I stayed here my entire life, I can still say that that's true. There's no Italian-American community here, unless somehow it's connected up with that embassy. There's an Italian embassy in D.C., and maybe those folks all live in the same area. I wouldn't know, but there's no Italians here at all. So from what I've learned about this kind of thing, the way everybody else learned, through the gigantic interest that went into this whole area with the publication of that novel, The Godfather, in the 1960s, I then became aware that this Italian crime thing is basically a neighborhood-type organization. No matter how they're making money through selling drugs and so on, from what I can see, as somebody who has nothing to do with this, that they are like a civic organization to help protect Italians from injustice. That's what they're supposed to be, what they are, what law enforcement says they are, I don't know. Anyway, to me it was laughable to hear that there's a mafia in D.C. when there's no Italians here. And to me, even then, I was thinking, there's a mafia in, oh God, how people believed this? It's not funny, because this guy sold his girlfriend's stereo to this sting, and what happened to him? He was put in D.C. jail. Now, you would do that to a white kid? Let's say the white kid lived in Georgetown, okay? A very affluent section of D.C. Millionaires lived there, okay? Along with other people, I'm sure, but there's some very rich folks living in Georgetown. At least in the past there were. Some kid in Georgetown sells his girlfriend's stereo to a police sting operation, and you're going to put him in D.C. jail, huh? He's the son of a senator, or the son of a judge, or a CEO of some. You're going to put him in D.C. jail? No, you're not. So D.C. jail, what was it like? Well, I visited the guy there. It was a very scary place. And as I learned later, like 30 years later from looking online, right around the time I visited there had been like an insurrection at the jail. So it wasn't a safe place to be at all. And I tell you what, when I was there, I didn't feel I was safe. Okay, I'm forgetting the whole thrust of this memory here, which was supposed to conclude something that I forgot while I was going off on tangents. Okay, so it's back to me. Okay, I had to go through this extremely rigorous search process. Okay, I'm going down a line of like police on a long table and saying, empty your pockets. I had a lot of Kleenex in my pockets at the time because my nose was running like crazy. That was the start of the weapons use on me. It was causing my nose to run like hell. So they say, okay, empty your pockets. And pulling out wads of Kleenex to put on their table. Okay, put it on there. So I go through this long search thing, all these locked doors, and I'm finally in this gymnasium where there's a bunch of like picnic tables in there for the prisoners to come and meet with whoever's going to visit. And I've discussed this many times. I was in there for like over 3 hours waiting for this guy. And most people would have left, right? They wouldn't have waited. But I said, I'm going to stay here no matter what they keep saying. I said, is this guy coming down or not? And they said, he'll be right there. That's what these guards were saying to me over and over. I'm over there for over 3 hours. He'll be right down. Okay, so while I was there, let me say first that one of the things I saw was the prisoners were often young, athletic-looking, what you might call handsome young men. Okay? These are what you might call a person who you might identify as a hero if you were an African American. These are not like weird, toothless dudes, who can come out hobbling like this, or God knows, you're looking like somebody who was a sports star in a high school in D.C., and now he's in a prison uniform. And what usually would happen would be the guy would be meeting with a very nice-looking African-American woman who'd come to see him, and he'd go around that table, and they'd embrace, and they'd be for like 15 minutes in a kiss. And that thing would go on and on. I saw a lot of these because I was over 3 hours, and that's what they did. They'd come around, and that kiss would be a 15-minute kiss. Then they'd go on either side of the table and chat. Well, here's the point. One guy not far from my table, he was like a middle-aged man, and he was almost white. His skin was so not black. He was almost like white in color, but he was African-American features. Anyway, he just had very light skin. And I could not hear what he was saying, nor was I trying to, I'm not trying to, I wasn't doing that. I was just waiting for this guy to come down. Yeah, he'll be right down. Okay. I'm looking at my watch. 3 hours? Where is this guy? He'll be right there. So I noticed this guy, a middle-aged man, and he had at least 2 lawyers at his table, maybe 3. And I think about this guy every now and then. I'm going to put this phone somewhere where I can use nonverbal language to communicate. So I'm at my table watching this guy, and he is trying to explain himself. He's like, he's talking for like 15 minutes that demonstratively, and I'm saying, wow, this guy, oh God, he can't make himself understood. This is terrible, right? This looks horrible. This guy, just may be an innocent man here he can't explain himself. He's been screwed somehow. Well, I never forgot that guy, but I got to say, I became that guy. In my life, I'm him. I became him. I became someone who's, now that's me all the time. I did this. This was an injustice happened to me. I didn't do that. You said I did this. You're wrong. I never did such a thing. I'm him. That's what happened. So I don't know how this recording started, but there's the end of it. Bye for now. Okay, I want to make this footnote to my note on the guy I visited down at DC jail, because some people might be saying, wait a minute, we're not sure you got this story right about this guy in DC jail. Well, let me add this to the story. Not only did I interview the guy down in DC jail, I interviewed the girlfriend and her mother at their house. And where did they live? They lived in what you call a row house in DC. And how am I familiar with him? Well, my Aunt Minnie, she lived in one. And Uncle Fred lived in one with her when he was in college going to Georgetown Law School. A row house. And Aunt Minnie rented the upper floor of the row house. So every time we visited the row house, and by the way, this row house became located later in what you would call a black section of DC. There's no white people living there at all. But when she lived there, when I was a little boy, it was all white. White folks living in the row houses. Now, let me go back to her and say she rented the upper floor. So there was a lady who lived on the first floor. So when you went in the front door, you passed through a little area on your way up the stairs where you were like entering, like, it kind of looked like the living room of this lady who lived downstairs. Now, I never saw that lady. But every time we went there, I was hoping not to see her. I said, hope we make it through here without meeting whoever it is. I don't know why I felt that way, but I did. We never did meet that woman. Now, I did go to the house, the row house, very like my Aunt Minnie's. And as far as I can recall, I can't say exactly where it was located now, the row house that I visited, but a lot of like a row houses, like I'm saying. And I went in there and I sat down in their living room and talked to the girlfriend and the mother in detail about what happened. So I'm not getting anything wrong on this. I am not. And this guy was put in DC jail for doing what he did. This is the kind of injustice you hear about from African Americans, that they're dealing with a legal system that's treating them unfairly over and over again. And in recent years, we've seen some blaring injustices. Probably why? Because of these phones. These phones are now recording stuff that no one was able to record before. And we're seeing these injustices happening. So, no, I'm not wrong about what happened here. I'm not wrong at all. Just want to make that footnote.